Hi, and welcome to ETF Watch. I'm Christian Magoon with Amplify ETFs, and we're here to highlight some of the best performing ETFs at Amplify through the first quarter of 2026, an eventful market. Let's get into it as the S&P is down about 4% during this first quarter with a lot of different types of events, geopolitical in nature, kind of affecting it and dragging it down. We have a couple ETFs in the energy space that have actually had some very solid year-to-date performance. So let's take a look at the first fund, USNG, the Amplify Samsung Natural Gas Infrastructure ETF, which has gained 21% through the first quarter of 2026. This is an actively managed ETF that owns U.S. natural gas stocks involved in the infrastructure really here in the U.S. Remember, natural gas is something the U.S. is an exporter of. In addition, natural gas is also the largest power of AI data infrastructure projects. So very important to the economy. This fund has done well, certainly with geopolitical tensions, but also the future forward need for more power across the U.S. electrical grid. Staying in the energy space is another top performing ETF at Amplify, 𝘉𝘵. This ETF is the Amplify Energy and Natural Resources Covered Call ETF, which was up 36% in the first quarter of 2026. And we're proud to say it has a 5-star rating. Essentially, it's an index-based ETF that owns oil, gas, and chemical stocks, and then systematically writes covered calls to have a distribution target of 10% on the portfolio. About 6 of the 10% is targeted from option income, and the remaining is expected to come from dividends. So 𝘉𝘵 and USNG offer investors 2 different ways to play the energy complex here in the US. Of course, 𝘉𝘵, with its covered call aspect, is part of the YieldSmart ETF suite at Amplify, which is our covered call ETFs that seek to benefit attractive income while not ignoring long-term capital appreciation. We think this balance between income and capital appreciation offers the potential for enhanced total return over the long term. Another key ETF that's part of the YieldSmart ETF series is 𝘉𝘍, the Amplify CWP Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. This is a 5-star ETF that has been around since 2016 and generated a 1.9% return in the first quarter of this year relative to the S&P being down over 4%. 𝘉𝘍 is actively managed by Capital Wealth Planning, who not only selects blue chip large cap companies, but also tactically writes covered calls as they see fit on the portfolio. The stocks in this portfolio do pay dividends, so between covered calls and dividend income, that produces a distribution yield of 4.7%, which is paid on a monthly basis. This may be attractive core portfolio allocation, as well as a substitute to an unhedged dividend ETF allocation. In addition to 𝘉𝘍, we have the international version of 𝘉𝘍 called iDevo, and that is the Amplify CWP International Enhanced Dividend Income ETF. This is a 5-star fund as well, managed by Capital Wealth Planning. They're selecting international stocks, which actually have had a real nice run in terms of performance, and also writing covered calls on those international stocks tactically. This fund has a little higher yield of 6% distribution yield and has had a good start to the year in terms of performance, gaining over 7% through the first quarter of 2026. This may be an attractive way to access international stocks, but not just bet on capital appreciation. Instead, have a component to total return that is fueled by option income and dividends. So there you have 4 unique funds, 3 5-star funds, 𝘉𝘵, iDevo, and 𝘉𝘍, that offer some attractive opportunities, and 1 newer fund, USNG, that accesses an emerging space of natural gas infrastructure. I'm Christian Magoon for Amplify ETFs. For more information, visit amplifyetfs.com. We'll see you next time.